Why would we have all those bacteria in our colon that digest insoluble fiber? They actually also can digest some of the proteins. It's a vestigial system. It's basically an inheritance. And the reason why we never lost it completely, and even other carnivores still have a colon. So if you look at other animals, they still have a colon. But then, at some point, all animals were either, had a sort of a carnivore existence, then evolved into plant eaters, or plant, and then evolved into carnivores. And they still have vestigial systems, like take for instance your, the appendix and the cecum. They're the same thing. The appendix is a little thing like that holds your gut microbiome, and the cecum is a big thing like that's in a gorilla, or a slightly smaller, which is in a chimpanzee, and that allows the fermentation of fiber in there. It's like a second stomach. So they have that capacity, those animals. We changed our eating patterns, and we've got the N15, N14 data to prove that. And so over a number of billions of years, as we adapted to eating more animal foods and giving up on plants, that basically cecum shrunk to basically an appendix, but still remains because it holds a gut microbiome. And the colon shrunk as well in size, but it's a vestigial thing. It never completely went away. Will it go away in the distant future? Who knows? There are many other carnivores that still have their colon. Maybe it has it plays a role in being able to, balance out the, it gives an opportunity. There are bugs in there, in the colon, that actually do produce short-chain fatty acids. They do produce a number of vitamins and do produce a number of things. And maybe because they're adding something, the body goes, okay, the leftovers of, of the animal foods, they will actually use that, and they will produce isobutyrate and a number of other short-chain fatty acids that they produce, and a few other substances. So, the body doesn't necessarily get rid of things. I mean, even whales have some of the vestigial body parts, anatomical parts, if you look inside a whale, all that, because it was a land animal at some stage. And so still you'll find that the hips and, we still have a tail, humans. And sometimes some humans, because of genetic reasons or whatever, actually grow a tail. But it's a vestigial organ. We never lost it completely. So will we lose it in the future? Maybe, if there's a reason. Maybe by sitting down all the time, it may be eliminated because of sitting, because of posture changes. Potentially, who knows? Time will tell. Evolution takes a very long time to change when there's a pressure. If there's not enough pressure for something to be eliminated, it just doesn't eliminate. It just shrinks it, reduces it in size, and it doesn't eliminate it completely. That's the reason why. And we don't have a vast amount of bacteria compared to other animals. We don't. That's one thing we don't have. There are other animals that have got far more protozoa, bacteria. And your gut microbiome isn't just bacteria. It's protozoa. It's bacteria. It's basically fungi, candida, anybody? Or a number of other things. And it's a number of other, it's viruses. There's millions of viruses, which are pretty much benign. And a lot of them also are pathogenic, but not to us, but to the bacteria, or to they've adapted to the bacteria, or they've adapted to the fungi. And so they actually work for us, are beneficial for us to keep those things under control and not over express themselves. So It's a complicated thing. There's always the reductionist way, you know, the plant-based idiots and come that, but they need to understand there are vestigial organs, things that remain. There's no reason to get rid of them because there's a lot of, you have to basically cleave off and change a lot of genetics to get rid of them. So what the body does is says, we don't really need them much. Occasionally, this person, for starvation reasons, may have a bit of plants here and there, so we'll keep part of it. And it just shrinks, and the majority of activity happens in the small intestine. That grows much longer, so you can actually eat animal foods, and it can take quite a few hours to transit through as it's slowly absorbing a lot of the nutrients. And that's what's happened. We've changed the lengths of those, but you don't lose them altogether. But other carnivores also still have some of these vestigial gut things. They haven't lost their colon, you know. So yeah, it's a mute argument. The key things, the key anatomical elements that you need to basically digest fiber is you either need a number of stomach chambers that particular do that, like in ruminants, or in basically monogastric animals, you basically need to have a cecum, like a second stomach. If you don't have a cecum, you really can't deal with a lot of fiber. You can only deal with very small amounts. Otherwise, you start getting into a lot of trouble. And because usually the cecum, where the small intestine is and where the colon comes, you've got the cecum there in that location. So the fiber would go into the cecum. It would be fermented and broken down and be less rough on the colon. Now, if you're pumping a whole lot, you've got a little appendix here which can't take it in, can't break it down. And what happens is with massive amounts of bacteria, it goes into the colon. And if it's particular raw, not cooked, it will have like little spikes, and they will cut into the actual the colon. And if you do that continuously, injure the colon with all this fibrous garbage you don't need, you're continually doing that, and you don't get enough animal foods which provide the nutrients that are required. Remember, your colon and your intestinal tract are made of primarily collagen. And especially there's far more even in your colon, even more than in your small intestine in terms of volume. There's per square inch or meter or centimeter or whatever you want to call it, there's more fibrous material because it has to do this sort of a much stronger sort of peristalsis type thing. It's very much more mechanical to push things through whatever's left over. And so as a consequence of that, that sort of contractile effects and these little hooks coming in and cutting, that's why I say this raw food crap or salads. Up until refrigeration, nobody had salads. Let's put it that way. Very few. Look at the old cookbooks. Everything was cooked when it came to plants, not salads. They will literally cut through your colon. And basically, if you do that long enough, you'll end up with diverticulitis. And if you don't have enough animal foods to build that protein, basically, to fix and repair all that, you're going to basically have more and more damage over time to your colon. And eventually, you know what the solution is by the medicals? Let's cut it out. Wonderful. Yes, that's their solution to everything. Let's cut it out.